morning. Good morning. Happy Thursday, everybody. I can't believe it's Thursday already. This week feels like it's going fast. We've got NBA in Paris today. There's an NBA game, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Spurs and Pacers in Paris. Obviously, Victor Wembanyama playing in France. Makes sense. Should be pretty cool. Good to have some basketball on in the day. I mean, that's the one for me. The one bad part about this time of the year is once we get to like when you have football, it kind of distracts you. Like we're in the regular season because you have football Monday night, and then it's just a couple days. You have football Thursday night, and then by the time you get to Friday, you're in full kind of mode for DFS and betting and stuff for all the games on Sunday and then Sunday night. So it's kind of easier to kind of navigate. Once you get to this part of the year when there's only a few football games and you just have, nighttime NBA or college basketball, it becomes kind of a grind. It's like there's nothing going on until the evening. I mean, you have hockey at night as well. Like there's nothing going on. Once we get to baseball, I mean, there's always kind of day baseball going on for the most part, at least a few days a week. So there's some stuff to kind of distract you during the day. But right now we're kind of stuck until we get to the conference tournaments for basketball. There obviously will be, daytime games going on then. But yeah, I've started to update kind of my data and stuff that I have for college basketball, ready to get back into that here with football winding down. So we'll definitely be talking a lot of college basketball on the streams coming up here, probably starting next week, to be quite honest with you. And then it'll be we'll be in that mode where we're headed towards the Super Bowl, that long 2-week wait. But yeah, so today we're going to talk a little football, and then we'll talk about this NBA game here at 2 p.m. Give out some plays. Golf yesterday was disastrous for me. Didn't do good on the 3-ball parlay. And my plan completely backfired. I told you guys yesterday, I love Ludwig Gobert, but I said I really like him in this tournament. He loves Torrey Pines, but he was only 9-1 or whatever. I was like, let's hope he starts off slow. We can get a better number. He proceeds to just come out and absolutely shred Torrey Pines. He's in first place, and he's now down to plus 175 to win the tournament. So any chance of us getting better than an 8 or 9-1 completely backfired. So I didn't take any outrights on this. I probably won't take any more outrights. He's at 9 under. There's a couple guys at 7 under, and then a handful at 6. The one thing we could do, though, is wait and see how today goes, and then maybe parlay Ludwig outright with like the Eagles or something on the money line. I might look into doing that this weekend. We'll see. We'll see kind of how things go. Hopefully he moves back and it's like a tie for the lead going into the weekend. We can get a little bit better number. But yeah, that plan of waiting for a better number, that was incredibly stupid on my part. Didn't work out very well. All right, so I guess we'll start with the NBA game. We'll talk a little NFL at the end. Aaron Glenn did get hired by the Jets, though, to recap some news. So we now have Mike Vrabel hired by the Patriots. We have Ben Johnson hired by the Chicago Bears. We have Aaron Glenn hired by the New York Jets. Still waiting on the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Saints, and the Jaguars. I believe 4 teams we're still waiting on. Once those teams, come through and hire their coaches, we'll do a kind of rank. I'll do a new hire ranking. We just did NFL coach ranking on Monday. What was that, Monday or Tuesday? We did that. Maybe Tuesday. I can't remember. Monday or Tuesday, we ranked NFL coaches. I think it was Tuesday. So once all the teams hire their coaches, we'll do a new hire coach ranking and kind of parse through that. I'm just still not I'm still just not sold on Aaron Glenn. I think that's just a completely typical New York Jets hire. Like, he wasn't overly impressive to me as a defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. They love the Jets for whatever reason love to hire these like first time guys. I don't know. You would think if they tried the same thing over and over again and it doesn't work, that maybe they'd try something new. Doesn't seem to be the case. They love to hire first time NFL coaches. Specifically, like their last two have been defensive coaches. First time, Robert Saleh and now Aaron Glenn. So, yeah, just don't really think it's that great of a hire. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I would say history is not on their side, considering the Jets have been pretty terrible for my entire existence on this earth. They had, that one flash in a pan with Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez. It really wasn't Mark Sanchez and Rex Ryan, in my opinion. I mean, there was multiple like Hall of Famers on that team. So, they ran hot for a couple years, made it to the AFC Championship game, never made it to the Super Bowl though. So, other than that, the Jets have been pretty terrible my entire life. I thought they would maybe go a different route, but yeah, I guess not shocking. I like Ben Johnson to Chicago. I've kind of went back and forth on this. I don't buy into the narrative that when people are saying like, oh, he was the Lions lost the game because he was distracted with, putting his staff together and stuff. Don't really buy into that. I think they did fine on offense. Like, people were like, oh, he had 500 yards of offense. Like, okay, I mean, that's kind of like painting it a little differently than it actually is, because Washington's defense, in my opinion, really isn't that good. They have played good down the stretch of the season here, but by all accounts, this is an average at best NFL defensive unit. Washington, they are not good. So you kind of have that aspect. Then you also have the aspect that the Lions, they put up yards every single game. That's not the issue. I do think Ben Johnson kind of I don't know like how to say this like without it coming across bad. I think Ben Johnson, if you've watched the Detroit Lions the last few years, I feel like they're very, and Ben Johnson included in this, I feel like they're very full of themselves offensively, right? Like, they like to play with their food. When they get in these games against teams that they don't like or teams that they're winning handily over, we'll see them kind of hot dog it. They'll do they'll throw a touchdown to Penny Sewell, or they'll try to. They do a lot of stuff with Dan Skipper. They run a lot of creative trick plays, with St. Brown, Jameson Williams, all that stuff. Like, they're very, very, I don't know like how to say it. Like, I feel like Ben Johnson's very much like, I'm smarter than you and I'm going to do this and you really can't stop me from doing it. Like, that's kind of how I view it, which I don't have a problem with. Like, if you're that, the NFL is not filled with people that really maximize EV and edges and all that stuff. Like, so the few teams that do, I do think they're smarter than the other teams. So I don't really have a problem with it, but it just kind of, something that sticks out to me. Like, I think Ben Johnson definitely thinks he's smarter than most, people he's going against. I think that kind of like the ego kind of bit him a little bit against Washington, because I just really struggle to understand why they were passing the ball so much. It was a close game. They were down 10 when Jameson Williams threw an interception. Like, having Jameson Williams throw that pass in itself, you're too cocky. Like, that in itself right there is a cocky move to have Jameson Williams, throw that pass. And it came back to bite him. But just overall, like, I don't know why they were so heavy throwing the football early in that game. You're facing, by all accounts, one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, Washington. Clearly the worst run defense left in the playoffs. And you have, David Montgomery clearly wasn't healthy to me. I don't really care about that. you have Jahmyr Gibbs, averaging 7.5 yards per carry in the game. He only had 14 carries. Okay. Yes. Once we hit like the fourth quarter, it was a little bit out of hand, but actually, really it wasn't. So it was 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. And then Washington completely blitzed them in the second quarter with the pick six and all that stuff. They outscored them 28-14. So it's 31-21 at halftime. Okay. Then the Lions come out in the third quarter and they outscore Washington 7-0 in the third quarter. So now we're looking at 31-28. Why is Jahmyr Gibbs getting 14 carries in this game? That would be my big question mark for Ben Johnson. So again, I like the move. I like Chicago bringing him in. I think it's the best possible thing for Caleb Williams. After that rookie year that Caleb Williams had, the best possible thing he could have is Ben Johnson coming, handpicking him and coming to coach for him when he could have coached for any team. That's great. But at the same time, I think he needs to dial back the ego a little bit. If the Lions just ran Jahmyr Gibbs that entire game 30 times instead of having, trying to do what the Detroit Lions do, they just handed the ball off to Jahmyr Gibbs 28, 29 times, they probably just win the game. And hindsight's 2020. I'm sure, Ben Johnson's thought about that, but I like the hire, but again, there are questions that need to be asked. Like, I don't understand why the Lions were throwing the ball so much in that game. And that's part of why I'm so confident in Philly this weekend. Philly is not going to do that. Like, Philly will hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley. And Saquon Barkley went for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in both matchups against the Commanders this season. Saquon Barkley's coming off a 26 for 205 and 2 with 4 catches, right? So we're talking 31 touches for Saquon Barkley last week. Saquon Barkley's been waiting his entire life to get in the playoffs, get into some meaningful football games. Even his time at Penn State, this was 14 playoff. Other than some like big games against Ohio State, he's really never played in any like huge like implication games. Like Saquon Barkley's been waiting this. He's going to get the ball 25 plus times. The Eagles are not going to only hand the ball off to Saquon 13 times, so it's a different situation. It's why I'm so confident in Philly this week. I think it's the perfect time to sell Washington too. Just with how people view them. Like I fully understand and am aware this is the best rookie season I've ever seen from a quarterback. But the fact that Washington is so public in this game is just hilarious to me. Truly, truly. I think the Eagles are the right side of the game. Defensively, it's no contest between these two teams. Philly, better defense. They have Saquon Barkley. Philly undefeated at home in the playoffs under Jalen Hurts. Since Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni have taken over, undefeated at home in playoff games. And third straight road game for Washington in the playoffs, pretty bad. I would say, like, historically, like, that's kind of worrisome. And then just factor in that the Commanders been sun running all season. If you think back to, Hail Mary wins that they had, like, they've been really fortunate all season. And that's not to take anything away from Jaden Daniels. They've been fortunate all season because of how good Jaden Daniels has been. But he has to play perfect football for them to win games with just the state of their defense. And they just lost a key offensive lineman. I just can't bet on him to play perfect every single game. Like, he's going to have a bad game at some point, and it's not his fault. Like, he's just going to have a bad game at some point. I made a TikTok video yesterday, stats to know for conference championship weekend. Jaden Daniels, the 6th quarterback in the history of the NFL to start a conference championship game. The previous quarterbacks that were rookies starting conference championship games combined for just 4 touchdown passes. So 5 guys got you just 4 TD passes in those games. Now, that is a little bit skewed because Brock Purdy got hurt. The last quarterback to do it was Brock Purdy, 2022 against the Eagles, weirdly enough. But he got knocked out early in that game and didn't play. So, maybe he would have thrown a touchdown or 2. I don't know. But Yeah, I mean, history not on their side here. I think Philly wins by double digits here. That's going to be my best bet, and I'm worried to do it, but because they haven't looked great, honestly, offensively. But yeah, I think Philly minus 6.5 is the best bet this weekend for me, and one I'll be making. And, this is someone like I don't want you guys to think I do root for the Eagles. Like, I wouldn't consider myself an Eagles fan. I didn't grow up an Eagles fan, but you guys know I root for Jalen Hurts. But there's no bias in this pick. I mean, I've bet against the Eagles in the past. I bet on Washington last week over Detroit. I think Washington's great. But uh, stylistically and matchup wise, I think the Eagles have the edge pretty much across the board. And Saquon Barkley's the difference, I think, for me in that one. I don't know how we kind of got on that topic. I think I started off talking about Ben Johnson. I don't know what led me to talking about that. Oh, I guess because I said Ben Johnson was stupid for not running the ball against Washington, and Philly will not make that same mistake. So I guess we'll just continue football and then we'll talk basketball. Bills Chiefs. I've gone back and forth on this. I've seen a lot of people questioning my take on the Chiefs. The main pushback I've seen for people wanting to bet the Bills are that Mahomes has not been good statistically this year. I don't know how that matters whatsoever. Like, if you see someone out there saying, like, Josh Allen's the better quarterback than Mahomes, that's why you should bet on Buffalo. I mean, just don't even listen to that person. Yes, Josh Allen is like the MVP of this year. I could literally care less what anyone's stats are when you're talking about Patrick Mahomes playing at home in a conference championship game. Like, that means literally nothing to me. So thought that was interesting. I've seen a lot of people say Buffalo's defense is better. I don't think that's true at all. Kansas City was severely banged up on defense all season in the secondary, and Chris Jones was banged up. Those guys are all back healthy now, so the defense is healthy. Bills also pretty fraudulent defense, I would say. Not to say they're not good, but anytime they've played an actual good team, their defense has not been what we've seen. So while the season-long stats for the Bills defense look very good, I think some context needs to be provided there. Look at the good teams they've played. They played Baltimore on September 29th. They give up 35 points. They played the Chiefs on November 17th. They beat them 30-21. They played the Rams on December 8th. They gave up 44 points and lost the game. They gave up 42 points to the Detroit Lions. And, they just gave up 25 points to the Ravens last week when they forced 3 turnovers. If you force 3 turnovers, especially when the Ravens were like driving on 2 of them, you force 3 turnovers and still get up 25 points. That's not good. Giving up 40 points to the Rams, not good. Giving up 40 points to the Lions, not good. 35 to the Ravens earlier this season. Like, yes, the Bills defense is good. It's one of the better units in the NFL, but I think some context needs to be layered there. They have not been good. If you isolate even the metrics, right? All the stuff that people are citing of why Buffalo's defense is good, isolate that to like some of the good teams they've played, and it's nowhere near the same. So I don't buy into the Bills defense being better than the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs defense is better. So I'll push back on anyone saying Buffalo has the better defense. I'll instantly push back on that. I don't think that's the case at all. Obviously, Kansas City, anyone debating coaching staff, there's no one debating that. Kansas City has the better coaching staff. And the point I've brought up many times, in a close game like this, it's going to be a close game. It's a 1.5 point spread. Both these teams are very good. Very well could come down to the last possession of the game. Very well could come down to who has the ball last. I don't like to bet on those type of games historically, but in a close game, special teams can play a huge factor. And we saw that with the Chiefs in their recent Super Bowl wins, right? Think back to the Super Bowl win over Philly. Philly went down, tied the game up late in the fourth quarter. Instantly, the Chiefs rip off a long kickoff return, to kind of set them up to go win the game. The Chiefs have very good special teams. They have good kick returners. They have a very trustworthy kicker in Harrison Butker. Say what you want about the guy. He gets the job done on the field in these big games. I trust him more than Tyler Bass. And they have the best punter in the NFL. And that can play a huge factor. If the Chiefs need to punt late and they can bring out, Ariza and he can pin the Bills inside the 5 or whatever, like that sort of stuff plays a huge factor in potential close games. And the Chiefs hold the edge across the board between coaching and special teams. So, yeah, I don't know. I just saw a lot of people saying like the Chiefs got dominated by the Texans last week. They did. The Texans had like more yards and all that stuff, but I don't know if it matters. Are the Bills better offensively? Probably. But, it's a different situation. And I think it's telling that the Bills are pretty public here and the line is not budging. I mean, it opened at -125 on DraftKings. It's still at -125 on DraftKings. The Bills are getting 64% of the money line tickets. They're getting 64% of the spread tickets. Pretty heavy Bills action coming in. And at least as of now, that line, has not moved. So I think that's interesting as well. But continuing on here before we head out, like I said, NBA in Paris, 2:10 Eastern time. Spurs, Pacers. Pacers are -3. The total is 230 on the nose. Slight juice on the under 230. A lot of people will be looking to bet on Wemby here with it being in France. No problems there, but his lines are so inflated that really tough for me to feel confident betting overs on Victor Wembanyama with these lines being inflated. So that's probably a pass for me. I do like Tyrese Halliburton, not Tyrese Halliburton. I like Miles Turner over 1.5 3-pointers. It's a little juicy, but that's my favorite play from this game when I was looking into it. Miles Turner over 1.5 3-pointers. If you want to parlay that with, like, maybe you could parlay that with Wemby. So, like, if I do Miles Turner 2 threes, Wemby, 20 points, that's about even odds. That's something I could get behind. You could throw in like Halliburton to get, 6 or 8 assists. Throw that in there as well. His line's at, 8.5. Pretty juicy the over. I would be good with the over 8.5 assists for Halliburton as well in this game. But yeah, Miles Turner over 1.5 threes was my favorite play that I found when I was looking into the game. Overall, tomorrow, Friday, we'll be live. We'll dive deeper into the football games tomorrow. I'll give out my touchdown picks, and we'll talk more. My first blog is out for the weekend. Go check that out, rollinginsights.com. It's free. If you want to read my Eagles Commanders preview, score prediction, touchdown prediction, all that stuff, rollinginsights.com. It's free. Good luck with your bets tonight. I'll be live tomorrow, 11 a.m. And yeah, see everybody tomorrow.